Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, I have a couple of thoughts. Well, the first is we're going to start visualizing our player profile information. Another one, a cool trick that doesn't work a lot, but you can do it here, is I might want to try to figure out how to get a player headshot here automatically, and we can go through that maybe towards the end of this. Let's start with the visualization stuff. So to start, let's just get the player average values in here. And I know that we already have them here in this comparison type of tool. And we can literally just use the exact same formula that we have here. And if you remember at the last video, I talked a little bit about average ifs versus index match, at least in respect to our data set with multiple entries. And this is using index match, which is the best, because then we'll get the total values for the players that have been on multiple teams. So I'm going to copy this formula that we have up here for Al Horford. And I am going to right click and paste the formula only right here. And there are going to be issues with it, but we went over index match a lot already, so we don't really have to go through that again. If you haven't gotten this done, then watch prior videos and you'll see how it works. And we pretty much want to keep all this stuff the same, except we want to change what we're matching to. So we're looking for NBA B to B is the second column in here, which is the player name. We need to match that to the player that we select here. Right now it's looking at F21 to match that to the player name in our data set. We need to match that to this guy here, wherever we select there. Let's lock that in. And then the second match criteria, we're looking in row, or let me just click enter. We're looking in row 1 to 1 in this data set, which is this row for our headers. And we're matching that to D59. And well, so I guess the way that we did our formula, we made it kind of dynamic already, not locking in the 59. So it's, if you click on it, it shows you it's actually looking at the right cell. So this is good. And I'm going to choose the total metrics. That was weird, wasn't it? Oh, that's because the metric's different. Okay, so total metrics, and we can just drag this down. We should be able to just drag it down to the bottom. And we'll have to reformat. Everything 1 decimal is okay, and we'll have to reformat the percentages to be percentages, which we can do by clicking on this button here. And yeah, we can leave a decimal there if we want to. It's whatever we want. So now we already, in the last video, we built the ability to do this, is now we can, again, similar to other visualizations, we can quickly choose something else and we'll be able to see other data, other pieces of data about that player. And now that we have their averages, we want to get their percentile, which we worked hard on in the last video. So I'm going to copy player and paste it here and go player PCT, because we'll use these to drive our, we could even just color coordinate these to paint a nice picture. And I'll also have the position PCT. But what will happen with the position percentiles, we'll probably hide it and we'll put a graph in here that uses it for the metrics that we select. So we need it in here so that when we choose a different type of metric, we're only getting the percentiles for the metrics that we pick in here instead of getting it from our dash filtered here, which has all of our metrics in it. So for the player percentiles, well, you guessed it. We can just do an index match, and maybe we'll do it first as we have it here. So I guess we are going to go through index match again. We'll go equals in index. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for something in our dash filtered area. And this is important. We need to have these headers in here when we do this. So let's just do here. Let's select all this and let's go all the way down to the end of it. Yeah, we got a lot of metrics, and we'll do that. So we're looking for something in here, and let's lock this in with $signs and be consistent. So we're looking for something in there comma. Now, which row are we looking in? If I click on the question mark now, what row are we looking in with this index formula? Well, we're looking in the row that matches something, because there are a lot of rows in here. So we'll say match. And if I go over here, for the player percentiles, we're looking at something that says player data. No, sorry, player PCT. That's their data used to calculate the percentile. So we'll match, quote, player PCT. And now if I change the words in here, this all get messed up. But this is not for looking pretty. It's for operational use. So I won't change the words here. We're matching player PCT to this column here, so or to these rows. So we want to look in the row that says player PCT, and we can lock that in. And then I'll do comma 0 because it has to be an exact match. If I open this up again, it has to be an exact match. And I'll close that off. And then I'll do another comma. And now this is the next argument in our index. So we're looking for something in here in a row that says player PCT in this column. And now we want to know which column we're looking in, because there are a lot of metrics in here. So we'll do another match. And we want to match, let's go to our dashboard, this metric, whatever metric is here, in line with the percentile that we're looking at. And we'll do the same thing that we did before, where we lock in the column, but we don't lock in the row, so that we can drag it down. Comma. So what are we matching this to? Well, we're matching it to, back in here, all of our headings up here. I2 to BT2, and let's lock that in. Comma 0, an exact match, and we can just do a couple parentheses here and click enter. And so what this is saying is that this player, their points for 48 per 48 minutes is in 37th percentile for their position, but we should check that. So let's go back into our dash filter, and we should see 37% for points per 48, and we do for the player PCT, or the player's percentile. So we know that that is working okay. And like I always do, let's do if error. If there's an error with anything going on in here, comma blank, and we'll close a parenthesis and click enter. That's fine that it looks like that for now. Let's go to total so that we see all of our metrics, and we can drag this down. And now we can format it as a percent, and maybe we want it to be, just to be simple, let's have it be no decimals. So this person's age is in the 20th percentile for their position, 23 years old. That's what that means. And now let's go get the position percentile. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did here, and we literally just change one thing. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in here. But now instead of looking in the player PCT row for the information, we need to look in the position PCT row for the information. So let's change player PCT to position PCT. Click enter. And we can drag that down to the bottom. And we have our if errors in there, so if we look at less metrics, like our key metrics, there won't be anything showing up. Even though, yeah, that's not going to work for at least for formatting percents. But anyways, okay, so now we have our player percent and position percentiles. Now let's create a graph. So the way that we can do this, and I think Google Sheets is good at a lot of things. Making graphs is not one of them right now. So I may struggle through this a little bit, but I'm going to select all this data here, the maximum amount of data, and go to Insert, Chart. And it should give me a chart of that information in the way that it thinks it should be. And it's giving me a histogram chart that we see here. Now, what I want this to be, and Google Sheets does not allow for this is I would like it to be a bar for the player and maybe like a circle for the position so that we can quickly see how the player lines up with the position average or with the position percentile without seeing a lot of bars. But you can't do that. I am still going to pick a combo chart, which allows me to do a bar and something else. So I'm going to click on that. And now we have this chart, and we're going to format it and get a line in there and do all the fun stuff. So I'm trying to, let's make it small for now, just so we can play around with it. And let's make it actually give the information that we wanted to give. So I'm going to click on these three circles here and go to Edit Chart. And notice there are other options here too that we could use, but we're focused on editing it for now. And we don't even need to worry about this data range and the series. This honestly confuses me a little bit. Let's just remove everything. I don't even know why I selected the data to begin with, but let's add a series, not an x-axis. Let's remove that. I'm trying to find the series. All right, add a series, and I'm going to click on this thing here to select a data range, and then I'm going to select our series of data right here for the player PCT, and I will click Enter. Now we have a bar with the player percentiles, and I'm going to go back into this, edit chart, and I'm going to add another series. And I'm going to click on select data range, and I'm going to select everything in the position percentile and click OK. And it's a combo chart. It's giving me a line, and that's okay. But so if I exit out of here, these are the position percentiles. I'm going to do some sort of area type of thing because I know I can use points on that, and I really wanted to have dots. So I am going to go to Customize. I don't remember if it's in chart style, but there are lots of options here that we could do. I might make the line smooth, even though it won't really be a line. Compare mode lets you hover over it and see different things. And I'll play around with the formatting in a little bit. But let's go to Series. And I'm going to select the position PCT. Right now it is a line, but I want this to be an area. And I want it to have points, and I can do that here. So it says point size. Maybe there's 7. That's pretty big, but and this is, remember, this is the full data set. This is a lot of metrics to look at. Normally I probably wouldn't do this. And maybe we make it a star. And the opacity is fine at 30%. But we can change the color of this too. Maybe it's just white or light gray. And we can bring this out. And now we can quickly get a sense for where this person, if we had labels down here, where they struggle and where they don't compared with their position percentile in the minutes played. But now the rest of this is kind of formatting stuff. And I'm going to go through that, but I'm probably going to struggle through it, like I said. So edit the chart. That's fine. Go to Customize. Chart style, that's fine for now. What I really need is labels. So maybe that's the horizontal axis. Doesn't even have labels. I don't know how to get them on there. I think it is in the setup. And the x-axis, we'll add an x-axis. And I will select the data range, and I will select all of our measures and click OK. And now we have all of our measures identifying what's going on down there. And let's, well, we need to know how it looks with everything in here, so it's probably important to see. And this will end up actually covering the position percentile, so I'll put it here now, and I'll make it all white. But let's edit this again. And these labels are kind of hard to see, so if I click on it, it'll bring me to it. I'm brought to this axis. The color is auto. Maybe I make it this color. That's a little bit easier to see. and I'll click on these labels also and make it that color. It's easier to see. And I can also customize this legend up here, so I'm going to click inside of it and say this is player percentile. That just looks weird. And I'll call this position percentile. And you can also change the text color of these, so maybe I'll make that white, and maybe I make this one that light blue because it's the play, so that we can kind of quickly tell. And I'm going to remove the title of this chart for now because we know what we're looking at. And I'm going to add data labels. So I'm going to click on the series. I'm just going to scroll down, and when you have the series selected, which you can also get to, so if we go to customize, it'll be in the series area. Go to data labels, and it'll throw on some data labels here, and I'm going to click on these labels. I just selected the labels, or you can go down here. And let's make the size 10 because they're too big. I'll make them bold. And for some reason, I think I need this chart to be a little bit darker so that I can see better. So let's click and let's go to edit chart, and let's go to our background, which is somewhere around here, customize, chart style, and we have background color here, and I am going to just make it a little bit darker so that we can see the numbers a little bit better. And I might change the opacity of this line. So if I click on the series, the opacity right now is 30%. We can change that. Maybe it's 10% so that it still covers stuff and you can kind of see that, but it's not drastic. And now at least we have, this is a lot of metrics to look at, like I was saying before. So if we choose something more reasonable, like our key metrics, the chart will look a lot better. And one thing that we did here, or that I did here, is I must have missed one of the rows for the axis, it looks like. So I'm going to click on the axis. But that's not how I do it. I go to the setup, and I'll go to the x-axis, D59. Maybe, I'll have to do D58 because that's where our data range was from, and I will click OK. And now everything's aligned the way that we need it to be, and I'm going to click on these labels, try to click on the axis labels, and I'll make the text small, and I'll make the text small here too so that everything will fit. And there we have it. Now we have a chart, a dynamic chart, if you will, that shows the player percentiles versus their position percentiles within this minute range. So Aaron Holiday, he plays 24.5 minutes. We're looking at positional players who play, or point guards, other point guards who play between 30 and 40 minutes. Maybe if we look at players that play between 20 and 30 minutes instead, we can see how he compares to players playing a similar amount of minutes with these results. And we do. Numbers will get lower. And if we select a different player, like I'm going to just pick Anthony Davis, he'll probably be really high on a lot of things. He's, for most players that play 20 to 30 minutes who are power forwards, he's way above. And if we change this 30 minutes to 40 minutes a game, he's still above most players that play in that range who are power forwards. I don't know how many there are, but that's kind of how we interpret this graph. And now what I think we can do is let's go back to the total metrics so that we have all of them listed down here. Yeah, and this is a lot. With the total metrics, it's just too much. I wouldn't advise using this graph with that. But what we can do is I think we can just select the, I thought we could move it, but it's already at the top. What we can do here, actually, this is interesting. So on the left-hand side, we have our axis. We can set the min value to 0, and not allow bounds to hide data, and set the maximum. If we set it to 1, which is the maximum that it should be is 1, everything gets cramped. But we could set this to a higher range so that there's room for the legend. So maybe it's 1.2. Now we've created room for the legend up top and maybe even a title or something else if we wanted it. Now let's color code the player percentiles. And we did conditional formatting before up here just to highlight the best within our selection. But maybe we want something different here. So I'm going to select all these percentiles that the player has. Format. Conditional formatting was just a fancy way of saying, tell me how to color these things. I select it. And instead of doing a rule, one of these rules, like this, if it's greater than a certain number, then make it a certain color, or less than a number, or between numbers, make it different colors. Let's just do a color scale. And we can set our minimum value, or we can make it a percent or a number or a percentile, and we can set our midpoint and our max value, and the colors will coincide. So what I'm thinking is that I want a number to be this color, and I want it to be 0. That's the lowest value in my data set, and I'm going to make this some sort of red. I'll make it dark red for now, because you want someone with the lowest, or someone with a very low percentile to be colored red, indicating that they lack in that area. And then the midpoint, I'll also set to a number, which is 0.5. That's right in the middle. And I'm going to make that white. So you get no color if you're right in the middle, if you're at 50 percentile, because you're not really on either side of the fence. You're kind of average. And if I go to number for the max point and I make it 1, which is the 100th percentile, the best, and let's say we make the color this blue, now we have a range of, we can quickly see where a player is better or worse, if you will. And if we pick someone maybe that's not as prominent, maybe this guy, we'll see a little bit of red in there. And you can quickly see the difference between someone like that and maybe like LeBron James, who's blue all over the place except for free throw percentage. And all right, so that's kind of the start of our player profile. Now I'm just going to highlight all this stuff that we have in here, and I'm going to make the text white. It's probably not a very good strategy because you don't want to, maybe I'd lock these cells, but it's the only way that I can think of right now to do it. And we'll have our graph kind of over here. And now let's add another graph. What I want to know in this graph is I want to know what type of player this is. So do they get to the free throw line a lot, or do they shoot 3-pointers a lot relative to the rest of the position? To me, that's kind of important information because I understand the style of play. So to do that, we're going to go into our data set here, and we're going to create some new variables. And we did this in the first or second video, but I'm going to go all the way to the right. We created a new position, remember, because the positions were kind of all over the place. So I'm going to add in a couple new columns, right-click, insert column left, right-click, insert column left, and I just need to keep on inserting a few more. And the variables that we're going to make is, for me, I'm going to do percentage of their, not of their points, but of their attempts being 3-pointers versus free throws versus 2-point attempts. Because then I know where they're trying to score the ball most. So I'm going to call this 2p percent. No, we already have something like that. So 2p freak. So 2-point frequency, and let's go 3p freak, or FREQ, and let's go FT FREQ. So these are the, that's not going to look good, but that's okay. We're not even going to show it. So the way that we can do this is I can go equals, and let's go over to our 2-point attempts, which is right here. And we can divide that by a sum of our 2-point attempts, comma, our not our field goal attempts, but our 3-point attempts, comma, and our free throw attempts, and close that off. And what this will do, you can see 0.7. That means that Steven Adams, 70% of his shots are 2-pointers. That's what that means. And we don't need to lock that one in, but we should lock in each of these columns. And actually, maybe we do lock this column in. It doesn't really matter, and then we'll say before, so I'll click enter. And we should say 0.7, which is 70% for frequency. But before we do this, we're going to do the if error thing. So if error, if there's an error with this equation, comma, let's make it blank, and close the parenthesis and click enter. And now I can copy this and paste it here. And the only thing that I need to do here is change P2 to M2 for the 3-pointers, P to M. And as you would expect for Steven Adams, as we went over in the last video a little bit, it's pretty much 0% frequency. And I'll copy that, paste it over, and change M to T. And now we're looking at free throw attempts divided by 2-point, 3-pointer, and free throw attempts. I'll click enter. We can format these as percentages so that we understand what they're saying. And I'll just keep it to no decimals for now. And if we double click on this, it should drag it down all the way. And we have these numbers for every player. So we understand the top style of play for all these players. And while I'm here, I'm going to set up... okay, you know what? Let's just create the visualization first. And the way that we would do that is let's go into our dash filtered and let's drag this across. Let's keep on dragging our headers across. And now what we see is we have the headers that we need to pull in the data. I'm not sure why this is not. Oh, it's because of our settings. And here, not many players play between 30 and 40 minutes a game, so let's just put that down to 0. Oh, I know what we need to do. So in the last video, we didn't do it for these ones, but for our other metrics, we added the ability to choose greater than a certain amount of minutes and less than a certain amount of minutes. Right now, these are not accommodated for that. So let's take all this stuff that we have and let's just drag it all the way across. Maybe it'll solve the problem, maybe it won't, but let's find out. Okay, perfect. So we have our frequencies come across, and we can highlight all of these and make them percents, just like we did before. But we don't need them here, we actually need them here. So what we can do is we can highlight all the stuff that we have here and just drag it across more. That's one of the benefits of doing it this way, is that if we add more stuff, we can just drag it across and things will update. So make these percents too. These are the players' actual percents, and although this is a little bit confusing, these are the percentiles of the percents. We're not interested in the percentiles for this right now, but let's go to the dashboard and we'll create another chart. So I'm going to select these 3 items here, which are the players. Oh, those are the percentiles actually. These 3 items here, which are the players' data. That's the player that we've selected, their percentages for shooting 2-pointers versus 3-pointers versus free throws. And I'm going to go to Insert, Chart. And that's not exactly what I want. I actually want a stacked bar chart. So I wonder, let me add another series. So that's one series. Let's add another series, and I'll select some data. And unfortunately, can't really see the data. Let's move this. Let's edit the chart. Add a series. select some data, and let's select the data underneath, which is the position averages. Click OK. And now we have a bar and a line. And if we go to the customize, is it customize? No, it's in the setup. Instead of having a combo chart, there are a bunch of other chart types here that you can pick from. Some of them, I would really like to do a radar chart, but not for this purpose. But I don't like the way they do their radar charts because you can't remove certain things and you can't fill in certain things. But maybe one day I would like to do that on our dashboard for different areas like shootings, for like scoring and playmaking and stuff like that. But we'll do that later. So I'm going to do this stacked column chart. And I might have done this the wrong way. There should be 3 series. So let's just see if we can switch the rows and columns. Let's go to edit chart. Oh, there we go. So it was already switched automatically by default. It's kind of weird. But now we have pretty much a breakdown for a player. We don't know who's who right now. For a player and for the position average for where the shots are coming from. And what we can do now is I'm going to click here and I'm going to copy this chart, go into our dashboard, and I'm going to right click and paste. And now we have another chart here. It doesn't look the way that we want it to, at least in my opinion, but we can start playing around with it. So maybe we make this one a little bit smaller, make this one a little bit bigger. And the styling stuff we can go through if you want. So I'll go to the edit chart area and let's go customize chart style. Let's make the background color dark again, just like the other one. Let's just keep this as it is for now. Chart axis and titles. We don't need that. That's what's happening on the... Oh, that's the chart title. So let's just call this player versus position shot locations. I don't really know what to call it, but that's what I'll do for now. I'll make maybe the text white and I'll make it bold. Sure, and we can change the font if we want to. Why not? Let's make it, I don't know why this has different options, but let's just make it wide. Maybe that looks, I don't know. Let's keep it roboto. Okay, so we got that. I want to collapse this. Or maybe we vertical axis title. We don't need anything in here. The horizontal axis title. I wonder, player versus position. I don't know. No, maybe we don't need anything there. We'll be able to figure it out in a different way because that looks bad. So I'm going to go to my series. I'm going to go to my first one, which is column 1, and it's blue. And I am going to color this. I guess that blue is fine for now. But what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, we'll add data labels to it. Let's just do that first. So I'll go to column 1. Column 2, I'm going to make a darker blue. So I'm going to select this blue that we have actually and go to the plus sign and then make it darker so that it stands out. And let's add data labels inside of that. And now the third one, column 3, let's just make it an even darker blue, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a little bit. So let's pick that blue that we just had and go to the plus sign and make it even darker, and we will add data labels to that. Now, what we have to do is we need to identify which is the player and which is the position average. I'm going to go into our data filtered. It looks like the player is the top one, so 52, 25, 23. This is the player, this is the position. So I'm going to format each of these data points individually. So I'm going to double click on the data point here, and it says format data point, and I can do that. So maybe I'll make it this light gray or the darkest gray. It's too dark. That one. And then on this data point, I just clicked on it, and I'll make it maybe that color. And then on this one, I'll make it the lightest color, which is that one. So now we're looking at the player versus the position average, and I'm not sure that I like that all that much. But anyways, what we can do now is let's click on the legend, and let's put the legend on the bottom. And what we can do, let's make the legend font size 10, make it small. Let's go to this, and you can't change the color of this, but let's also make this small. And now in here, what we can do is we can double click on each of the points and tell it what it is. So let's go in here. 23% is free throws, 25 is 3-pointers, and 52 is 2 points. So we can label those accordingly, where I will double click on the 52%, which is 2 point. I'll just type in 2PT. And then I'll double click on this, or maybe we'll format it first. So let's make the font size actually a little bit bigger and bold it, and we'll make it white. And then we'll double click on this one, and we'll say this is, I don't remember if it's 3PT, but we'll check again. 3PT, and we can make the color white, and we will bold it and make it 12, just like the other one. And this one is FT. And we will, again, make it white, bold it, make the font size 12. Let's just check. So 23% should be free throws. It is. So now what we have is now we have two charts. One chart, we know what it does. We went over it. This one is looking at the players' shot locations versus the position average shot locations. I really wish that you could change this, the color of this, but you can't. So if we pick a different player, let's think of someone, James Harden. So what I would expect to see, let's talk about what we'd expect to see this dark blue box get bigger, especially relative to the position. Let's see how that goes. So I'm clicking here and going James Harden. Let's select him. Yeah, you'd expect him to see way up there for a lot of things. And yeah, almost 35, more than a third of his opportunities come from the free throw line. And obviously you get 2 free throws for every foul, which throws it off. But this is the way that we're looking at it. And similarly, this will respond to, well, James Harden, he plays 36.5 minutes a game. We're looking at guys who play between 0 and 40. What about guys that play between 30 and 40? And it changes a little bit, but not too much, like slightly more free throw shooting there. So this is our player profile. I think we've done a pretty good job with this for right now, aside from some formatting things. The last thing that I want to show you how to do is how to potentially get a headshot in here. Okay, so I'm going to go to basketballreference.com. And here I am. And I'm on Steven Adams. He's the first guy on our database list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this picture and open this image in a new tab. And I'm going to click on that. Oh, you can't see that. 1 second. So now we see a URL up here. And we're lucky in that the way that this is done is consistent, and you don't need like a unique player ID or anything like that. You just need to know the player's name for an opportunity to pull this image or to get this image automatically. And so that's great. I mean, that's what I notice here. After I looked at a couple players, this number is always the same, at least from the players I viewed. And this is a consistent structure where it's 5 letters of their last name and 2 letters of their first name and some other stuff. So I'm going to show you how to go about pulling that information in. Okay, so now I'm going to NBA 1920, my data set, and the quickest way to do this, you could do it more formally, but I'm going to do it a dirty way. So I'm going to call this first name, last name, and I got to add more columns again. This is okay. if you have a lot of data, we only have like 600 players in this data set, but I would imagine that you going through this process would slow things down a lot if you had more players. Here, I'm just adding more columns. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to use a calculation called split that essentially splits words apart, so if there's a common theme with them. And in our case, we have one word, a space, then another word, and we're going to split the words by the space. So I'm going to go equals split. Now it's asking me for the text. Where are we here? Click on B2. And now it asks for the delimiter, which is what you want to split it by, and I'll do a quote, space, quote, and that's kind of it. That's it. And I'll click enter. And now what that does is it creates two columns with the text split. Now I'm going to do the same thing, the if error, comma blank, just because we've done that the whole time. And now what we found out is that we need the first 5 letters of the last name and the first 2 letters of the first name. So I'm going to call this first name 2. I'm going to call this last name 5. I don't really know what to call it. And we're going to use a formula called left, which takes things to the first number of characters to the left of a cell. So I'm going to say equals left, open parenthesis, what string? I want this string, whatever the first name is, comma, how many characters? Well, that's the first name. I want 2, and I'll close the parenthesis and click enter, and I'll do the same thing. If error, comma, blank, click enter. Now, one important thing, and hold on a sec, because I'm going to go back into the page so that you can see. One important thing is that notice how these letters are all lowercase in his name. We need to apply the same format here. And now I'm going to jump back into the Google Sheet. So the way that we can do that is we can just add an equation or a calculation called lower before left. Lower, parenthesis, left, and then that stuff. And all this does is it makes things lowercase. So I'm going to click enter, and now the ST, here's the formula. Now the ST is lowercase. And I'm going to copy this formula and just paste it over here. And it's already looking at the last name in BQ2, but let's make it 5. And now I'm going to type in, I'm going to say URL begin, and I'll say URL end. Those are my 2 other columns, and I'm going to say URL full and image. So this is a lot of columns. We could probably do this in 1 or 2 formulae if we wanted to, but I wanted to kind of spread it out. So what we'll notice, I'm going to jump back in. So what we notice is that there's this stuff. There's this stuff that happens before the player's name, and there's this stuff that happens after. And the stuff that happens is very consistent. And all we have to do is we have to copy that and paste it into our sheet. So this is very consistent. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back into the sheet, and I'm going to paste it in here and click enter. And then I'm going to go back. You're not going to see me do it, but you'll see what it is. And I'm going to copy the end of it, and I'm going to go back in here, and this is my URL end column, and I will paste it. That's what it is. It's o1.jpg, which is an image type. And now I'm going to go URL full. So the way that I do that is I'm going to use a formula called concatenate, which just combines things together. It could be text, numbers, a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to do equals concatenate. And all I have to do is put it in order. So the URL beginning, comma. After the URL beginning, we need the last name, comma, then the first name, comma, then the URL end. And I'm going to close the parenthesis and click enter. So now, let's see if I make this big and wide, or wide. This is what the URL looks like. And that matches the format that we saw before. I'm going to do if error, comma, blank. So if there's an error, it'll be blank, but we don't really care about that for right now. Now image, there's actually an equation or a calculation called image in, I should just say function. I don't know. Sorry, I'm all over the place. You can use equals image, open parenthesis, and you can use a URL to get an image from it instead of inserting it manually like we did before, but that's because the URLs weren't consistent, so we had to do it that way. But now we have a consistent process to get images. So I'm going to click on that, close the parenthesis, and click enter. And that is the image here from the person that we have here. And now I'm going to get all this stuff. I'm going to do if error. I don't even know if error works with image, but let's just be consistent here. If there's an error, let's make it blank. And let's take all this stuff that we did and double tap on the down arrow. And what we should see is some players might not have images, and I would expect that. And now if we scroll down, we should see a bunch of images for all these people. Some of them are not like the others, and that's fine. We have headshots, and we just did it automatically for over 600 players. So let's go to our dashboard, and let's do the same thing that we did here. We're going to do an index match. So equals index. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to over here to our images. That's what we want. So I'm going to click on BW. So we're going to index the image, comma, but we need it to match, or we need to match the player's name that we select, which is, I can't even see it, so I'm just going to pick a random cell. I'll say D56, comma, we need to match the player's name, if that was in D56, to the player's name here in B. And I'm going to do comma 0, exact match, and we'll close the parentheses and click enter, and we have an NA. And that's okay because we're not actually matching to the player's name yet. It's actually in cell B57. So let's try B57 and click enter. And let's put this in the middle of the cell. And well, there you have it. I didn't know if that would work. So say if error, there's an error with this, comma, let's make it blank. And now we have some, I mean, this is pretty sweet, actually. So if I go to, I don't know, I'm going to, I'm going to do Jason Tatum. If I know, I don't even know what to spell. Jaylen Brown, I guess. That's not Jaylen Brown. I don't know where that picture is coming from. But let me try. Actually, let's check our data set. This is a good thing. So let me look at Jaylen Brown. Let me try to find him. I'm going to do a find. So tools, edit, view. So I actually just did a little search and I found Jaylen Brown here, and I looked over in size image, and that is the right image. It's not him. But what I found out is that some of these are o2.jpegs. So that's probably because I had another J.A. Brown before. So common names, you might have a little bit of an issue. But if I change this to O2 and click enter, now the image changes to the right one and I have the right guy. So with newer guys, you might, or common names, you might have to play around a little bit and see who they are if you need to. But I mean, maybe like Holiday might be another one. Like I wonder if Drew Holiday. No, that's him. Justin Holiday. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are working okay, but there might be a few outliers there. Anyways, I hope this tutorial was helpful. I know we went through a lot. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll probably mess around with the design of this a little bit more because some of the things look kind of ugly. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, maybe there'll be another one. Thanks for watching.